This is a story of one of the biggest lessons I've learned in life. It's related to Germany, to the USA, and it's about judgment, acceptance, and ultimately love. Tonight is a very cold, cozy night in California. So I have my cup of tea and we're just going to sit here, we're going to chill, and I'm going to share this personal story with you. And through this story, that lesson that I've learned, maybe someone out there can also relate to. I grew up here in Los Angeles, and the first time I ever stepped outside of the USA was when I went to Germany 16 years ago. It was December and it was a week before Christmas. We flew from Los Angeles to Munich. When we got out of the train station in Munich City, it was frigid cold. That same evening, we went out to dinner. This was my first time in Germany and first time meeting these people. And the conversation at the table was mainly in German. And I didn't speak a word of German. And all the tables around us, everyone was speaking in German. This was my first experience ever in my life where I was in a situation where I had no idea what people were saying, what they were talking about. I couldn't understand a single word because I didn't speak any German at all. It was such a strange experience of being in a public place, but not having a clue what people are saying. That very precise moment, my mind went straight into thinking that I do not like this. I do not like the feeling of this, and therefore I do not like Germany. When we put ourselves into the negative space, we fail to see the positive in any new experience. So I shut myself out at that very moment in experiencing anything new. The next day, Stefan took me to Strandhalle. It's an indoor space where there are multiple different restaurants and bars all under one roof. And it is a very multi-culti type of a place. His attempt for this was that maybe if we go there, I'll see something different and maybe I'll hear people that are speaking English as well. And there as well, I didn't hear anyone speak English, nothing but German. I felt even more lost. The next day, we took a trip from Munich to go see Stefan's parents in the countryside. So we went from the hustling and bustling city to this very quiet, small little village. And the irony to all of this is that 16 years after, now we are living in the same village. It goes to show you that how unpredictable life can be. Things you think about will not happen, and things you don't even think about all of a sudden just appear and happen. So back to the story. I met Stefan's parents for the first time, and they didn't speak a word of English. And the same day I also met his siblings, and they also didn't speak a word of English. The next day his parents threw a huge Christmas party. They invite the entire family, all of the extended family. So I met all of the aunts and uncles, the cousins, their spouses, their children, all in one night. Maybe you can already guess by now. No one spoke a word of English. I was extremely overwhelmed meeting all these new people and not being able to communicate to them. Funny part is that they were very friendly and they were very welcoming. They were trying to talk to me and they were talking to me as if I know German, even though they knew that I didn't speak a word of German. I resisted, and I remember going into the room, shutting the door, getting on the laptop, and just doing something on the laptop. Parents didn't have Wi-Fi back then. Interesting times. Now when I reflect on that evening, I think to myself, that was actually such a fun evening. And rather than shutting myself out, I could have been somewhat part of it. I could have communicated with hand gestures or something, but I didn't. I was not allowing myself or anyone else to enter into my personal space. The first couple of years in Germany, I resisted everything. I didn't want to learn the language. I didn't like the food. I didn't want to make any friends. I treated it more like an obligation that I was going there because I was dating a German. I didn't have any interest in opening up and accepting the culture. After those couple of years, I realized that in order for me to function at the most basic level in this country, that I need to learn at least basic German skills. The only way we can assimilate into a society is if we open up to that society and if we can actually communicate within that society. This realization led me to my breaking point of when I started opening up to Germany and the German culture, the Bavarian culture. And this redefining moment was a day when I needed to buy winter socks. I know this sounds very strange, but hear me out. We were meeting a couple of friends for drinks. We were running late because I'm always running late, so Stefan could not go with me to the department store to get me socks. But until this point, I relied on him for everything. So I walked into the department store, went up to the sales lady, asked her in German where the winter socks were. She asked me which color I was looking for and which size, and I told her which color and which size, all in German. And this was the first time ever I was having a nice conversation with a complete stranger. And when I say nice conversation, it's because I felt confident that I could understand her. She could obviously hear that I wasn't a native German speaker, but she could understand everything that I was requesting. So we had a really nice conversation. She was smiling, I was smiling. And I felt so proud of myself and I felt so good at that moment. I walked out of the department store smiling. I didn't feel like an outsider anymore. I didn't feel lost. I finally felt like I was part of this society now, a little bit, at the most basic level. It's funny how sometimes these small gestures or small things that happen in your life can completely change the way you feel and the way you think. That moment was a realization that I am now accepting this new culture into my life. I'm opening up to it. And I also felt like I was being accepted as well. So it felt like a mutual thing that was happening. And it was magical. Once I lowered my walls and accepted what was there without judgment is the day that I started embracing the country. I started falling in love with Germany and the German culture, the traditions, the food, everything that I used to complain about, like the benches at the beer gardens were too hard, they were not comfortable. They didn't have good wine selections at the Wirtshaus, not being able to find good cocktails when we went out. Why are people still drinking Cuba Libre? Or not being able to find variety of vegetables in the winter months. Even the language barrier. Like all those things that I used to complain about are the things that I now find charming. See how funny it is, like how your perspective changes when you start thinking positively, when you start thinking differently. All those things that I just said that I used to complain about are all those things which I now miss when I'm here in the USA. I miss the culture of sitting in a cafe for hours and just talking about life. Whereas before, I just wanted to sit, eat, pay, and move on to the next activity. I've learned to embrace simple pleasures of life. Like now in Germany, I love to wake up and go into the forest in the morning to get fresh air. Rather than using the car, walking the 2 miles to go pick up fresh eggs. Walking to the bakery every morning so I can buy fresh bread. So through all of this, I've learned that once you start accepting something, once you open up to something, you not only cultivate love, you also open up your mind. You open up your heart to so many new beautiful things in life and you grow as a person. Doesn't mean I love everything about Germany. I think it's impossible to love everything about anything, but I love it enough to live there and to build a life there. So that was my first impressions of Germany. I hope you enjoyed this little story. Let me know in the comments of your experience of first impressions, and I will see you in the comments.